What is going on, guys? In this video, I'm going to teach you how to use Netlify Forms and NuxtJS in a project. I'm making this video because Netlify Forms and NuxtJS do not play along with each other very well at all, and you need to do a couple of little tweaks that I've spent probably too much time figuring out in order to actually allow your form input to go into Netlify. But first, let me just show you how it's supposed to work. I have a little form here. I'm going to type in just like example name, example phone number, an example email, and a little example text area, and I'm going to click submit. What's supposed to happen is you're supposed to get this little screen here. It's just Netlify's base thank you modal. The screen doesn't have to show up, but just the way I've configured it makes it show up. And this is just a good indication that your form has actually come to the right place. You go back to the site, it'll take you back to that previous page. What happens when you submit that form is if you go over to Netlify Forms here, so I'm on my project page, I go over to Forms, you will have the name of whatever your field, or rather your form is here. And then if you click on that, you'll actually see, your input. In my case, it's in spam submissions, just because I've done this like 50 times in the last 2 minutes. So yours will probably be in verified submissions. Then you get a bunch of information. In my case, it's whatever the input field names are. So I had a location, so it gives me the slug of the page, the full name, example name, phone number, this, email address, that. The reason why people usually like using Netlify Forms, by the way, is because you can set up webhooks and you can automate this so that every time you get a new form submission, it sends it to a webhook or it sends it to your email address or something like that. So very handy stuff. Now the question is, how do you do it? And how do you do it in a way that's consistent and actually works? I've run into so many issues with this stuff over the last little while where, if I land on the form page directly and then I fill out the form, it works. But if I were to land on the home page and then navigate over through the pre-rendered links, like Nux-links that Next.js provides you, then it wouldn't work. Or if I were to land on the web page and then refresh or something like that, it wouldn't work as well. The point is there are a lot of headaches. And the reason is Netlify's crawlers have a hard time picking up your form. So because we're using Next.js, we have to do a couple of extra things in order to improve the likelihood that it can. In the Netlify docs for their Netlify forms, they say that all you need to do is include this data-Netlify element and set it to true. So here we have our form. That is, if we go back here, that is this form right here. You see there's like a contact us for an instant quote. Our average response time is less than 60 seconds, right? So believe me, this is your form. All that Netlify says you have to do is go up to this form element and then add a data-Netlify attribute, set it to true. And the idea is if you do that, then when you build the website and you deploy it to Netlify, it'll automatically scan through it, pick it up, and then configure that form so that the input, or rather the output of that form, is sent to Netlify. Unfortunately, with Nux, it doesn't really work that way. And the reason being is just the way that your project is built, and JavaScript hydration and like client-side rendering of your project on the browser works. It doesn't pick it up probably like 80-90% of the time. So in order to make it actually work, we have to include a couple of extra things. The first thing we have to include is we have to include a hidden input field here. And that hidden input field needs to have the same value as the name of whatever your form is. So I've actually commented this out, but this is what that looks like. We have our form here that we added the data-Netlify attribute to. Immediately under the form, we have to add this. Input value is equal to whatever the form is. So in this case, the name is contact, so I put contact. Then name of input is form-name, and this is just going to be the same regardless of whatever your value is, anything like that. This is just the string that Netlify uses to pick up that this is the hidden input field. And the type has to be hidden. You can experiment with including a closing tag if you want, but I've actually seen a couple of issues where when I don't include that closing tag, then on prefetch pages, it doesn't work. I wish I could tell you why, but that's just the state of Netlify Forms with Next.js right now. And the last thing you need to do, and this is something that basically no online tutorials will tell you, but this has worked really well for me, is you have to include a data-Netlify honeypot field, the data-Netlify-honeypot equal to bot field. And this is kind of like an optional final attribute for your form field for Netlify that just tells it to ignore all bot input and only focus on human input. But for whatever reason, when I have this magical combination of attributes, Netlify Forms works perfectly regardless of whether I arrive at the page on its own or I use a Nux link, let's say, arrive at the base page and use a Nux link to go over to quote and then fill it out. Regardless of the way that the form works or regardless of how I get to it, it works. And that's ultimately what I think most people are looking for. So to recap, all you have to do is add data-Netlify equals true, data-Netlify-honeypot equal bot field, and then this hidden input field here. Hope that was helpful, guys. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions.